Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I'm offering this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. It is titled, Remember, Remember. Remember all those who have inspired us, who have lit the flame within. A friend asked me the other day why I referred to Molly as Buggerlugs. He looked quite disturbed actually by the phrase. I explained to him it was a term of endearment from when I was a kid, when I was growing up, and my granddad would often refer to me and my brother as Buggerlugs and other similar phrases. And I speak to Molly in a similar way to how my granddad spoke to me, really. It's certainly a term of affection, a term of endearment. Although, if I was to really think about it, it probably doesn't sound like that to someone who's not grown up hearing the phrase. And of course, these things, it's all about context, isn't it, with these things? It's a cultural thing, I guess. Culturally specific, perhaps, is the correct terminology. Because it seems that, like anybody below the age of 40 and not from Yorkshire or Lancashire, have never heard the term, or at least not even versions of the term. Hence that strange look from folk when they hear it. I've even heard of a folk song called "I'll be your buggerlugs if you'll be my sugar butty," or maybe it's the other way around. It's an old northern folk song from the 70s, I think. It's rather sweet, but it sounds strange to the uncultured ear, if you like, or people from not who didn't grow up in that strange culture. So much in life is culturally specific, isn't it? But so much of these things are disappearing, I think. Anyway, as is my way, I posted about this amusing. It was the look on the young man's face it really got me. I posted about it on social media. It was really an attempt to offer something light for folk that some folk might connect with. It's my way sometimes. A response that was both amusing and fascinating to me. I think a bit something light into our troubled world, really. My mum obviously read it and replied. She sent me an email about my siblings, not just to me, with the following little tale. I have probably told you this before. I had a great uncle Eddie. He was certainly a character. I used to love going to see him, and he had two Yorkshire Terriers called Buggerlugs and Mucky Clogs. Mucky Clogs. I remember the phrase now. He also had a minor bird who would shout out the two dogs' names, Buggerlugs and Mucky Clogs, as well as shut up all the time. Needless to say, my mum added, needless to say, he was Grandad's uncle. And a little later, she added a bit more information, a bit more clarity. Uncle Eddie was Nana's brother. The family lived at 3 Loxley Street in Batley. It was a one down and two up. They had 6 children and an uncle who lived there also. No bathroom or inside toilet. To the right of the chimney breast was a sink with a cupboard above. Uncle Eddie replaced the cupboard front with wire netting and kept 2 hens there. You couldn't make it up. Love, Mum. You truly could not make it up, could you? I have heard this story before, but it had got lost somewhere in my subconscious. One of those memories that gets lost. So many memories do sadly have done, but they're there somewhere buried, and the memory has resurfaced and reformed in the last few days as the week's gone by. A deep week actually, a week deep in richness in so many ways. So it makes perfect sense that I would call Molly Buggerlugs. Although some days, especially after being in the park this week, when she comes home, I think actually Mucky Clogs probably suits her better. I've not started calling her that yet. I have had some bewildered looks from people as I have shared these tales this week, but I'm kind of used to that. Now, the conversation has brought some wonderful memories to my heart and to my mind of those tales my granddad used to tell me, most of which I can't really repeat. not now. As well as other tales told from my dad and aunties and uncles, my mum and other people, other family members, people you don't see or some that are long gone now, some you see only occasionally, those that lift your heart up. Most of them make me smile so broadly these days, although some don't, but that's for another day. Autumn, and especially late October and early November, really, is the season of remembering and the season of remembrance. It seems it's been that way throughout human history, the thin time where the space, the gap between the living and the dead seemed much closer. It's a time for remembering and a time for remembrance. Do you remember the old English rhyme? Remember, remember the 5th of November. The gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. I won't recite all the verses here as it gets dark and grim as we move through the full story. Those old rhymes often did, you know. Poetry and song are pretty lame these days, despite what we think. Certainly in comparison to days gone by, those folk tales and folk songs were much darker and grimmer than music today. Modern life can seem pretty tame when compared to the past, in truth. As my other granddad used to say, there's no such thing as the good old days. Yet people have rose tinted glasses often. This week has marked the beginning of the season of remembrance. Remembrance is far more than simply remembering. It's about bringing memory to life. We marked All Hallows Eve or Halloween on the 31st of October, All Saints on the 1st of November, and on the 2nd of November, All Souls Day, a time in the Christian calendar to remember all souls who have departed this life. Now, like other Christian festivals, including Christmas, Easter, and Whitsuntide, these 3 autumn days are a fascinating mixture of pre-Christian, Christian, and even post-Christian tradition and mythos. I am fairly certain that the children who were going door to door on Halloween were probably not aware that they were creating a modern day variant on the pre-Christian festival of Samhain, a festival that not only celebrated harvest, but was also a time to commune with spirits of the ancestors. There are similar traditions throughout most cultures, autumnal and winter festivals. Autumn is a time of reflection, a time to take stock before the harsh realities of winter set in. Halloween in the north of England is something that is marked, at least in a secular way, far more these days than I remember from my early childhood. When I was a child, it was Guy Fawkes or Bonfire night that took on far greater significance. I don't remember going trick or treating. And that only really seemed to take on significance from 1982 onwards, when the whole of the north of England or culture for young people changed, following the film E.T. the Extraterrestrial, perhaps one of the most commercially successful films of all time, and one that changed something culturally significantly. Certainly in my life, and maybe for most young people in the north of England. I recall, as many others did, that after this going door to door trick or treating replaced the old tradition of going door to door asking for a penny for a guy or the horrors of Mischievous night. They all got swallowed up by trick or treating, it seems. Mischievous night, at least in Yorkshire, that is, always came on the 4th of November and was linked to the gunpowder plot of fireworks night, which is, of course, the 5th of November. Remember, remember the 5th of November. Gunpowder, treason, and plot. Things could get pretty wild on Mischievous night, and some, I'm sure, are very glad that this has pretty much been lost to history now. You hear of little pockets of it in Liverpool and Leeds, but mainly it's gone the way of the dodo. It's been replaced by trick or treating. It's not that we didn't mark Halloween, it just didn't have the significance culturally that it has today. It takes over for a whole month, doesn't it? There's a part of me, though, that wishes this wasn't true. I remember the thrill of getting up to no good with friends and of hearing similar tales of other friends who were far more daring than I. It was a real important release in this dark time of year, and what can be a time that where people's moods get lower. I remember a particular exciting time with my cousin Charlton, who I've been thinking about, who sadly died earlier this year. I remember that. I remembered it at his funeral, actually. The thrill and the excitement of those childhood days have been in my heart so strongly this year. So many people, so many memories. I also remember my granddad telling me of things that he and his mate Percy Epworth used to get up to, those naughty little boys. I remember the delight of in this night of freedom that the children were granted. A freedom that I fear children of today don't quite enjoy. Maybe that's not a bad thing, I don't know. We see enough really in our lives to be frightened of the fear in the daily news each and every day. So there's a loss of innocence and there's a loss of freedom, I think, for young people today. In some ways, of course, in other ways, there is a far greater freedom. I'm not wearing rose tinted glasses here either. There's pluses and minuses to all these things. Young people today have some greater freedoms than we never had. But in some ways, we were allowed to run free and be a bit wilder, really, and we're left to do so a bit more, perhaps, than young children and young people today. So there's a balance to these things. I was recalling these kind of adventures actually with a younger adult friend in their twenties this week. She was telling me of the joy of going pumpkin picking with her family as a child, a tradition that continues even into adulthood. Sounds like a lovely, lovely, idyllic experience, so wholesome, almost like something from the Waltons or something like that. Not that she would know what the Waltons were. And she was utterly, utterly bewildered as I and another friend recounted tales of our youth, as I did, I suppose, when I listened to the similar tales from my granddad or adult people old enough to be my parents or grandparents when I was growing up. Kind of it shows my age, really. It was kind of funny, but the look on her face as we recounted these tales was priceless. These memories I've been thinking so much of these last few weeks mean so much to me today. I know there are gems there that will help me to truly appreciate the life I have now, the richness of it, a life made richer by those that have blessed my life. Yes, there is much pain in my life, in what made me who I am, but there's so much love too, and you can't have one without the other, it seems. There are so many gifts, so many blessings. Remember, remember. Memories are snapshots of life, moments that stay with us. It always fascinates me how these memories take shape and form and often reshape as time goes by. It amazes me how these memories seemingly reincarnate as time goes by. We should not fear our memories. They are precious in so many ways. And it's these very memories that make the present moment, I believe, truly come to life. They enrich it. I've discovered that sometimes you can lose some of the true richness of the moment itself by being too engrossed in what you're doing, by being kind of, you make your life very small. It sounds counterintuitive. I know it goes against what the gurus say, but to me, there's a richness to the whole of my life that comes alive in the moment. Not passively living in the moment can make your life very thin and narrow. I'm not rejecting the power of the moment. Please don't get me wrong. What I'm really suggesting is there's a greater power in bringing the present moment alive by enriching it with our whole selves, our whole lives, and all that has made up our lives. It's a kind of active experience of the present moment, if you like. It's about opening our whole selves up to the moment that we're in right now and not just passively experiencing what is there, just watching the world go by. That's no way to live. You're like a ghost. It's about wholly living in the moment and then carrying that snapshot of that moment into the future, bringing the future to life. It's about truly living on the threshold of everything, The truth, of course, is this is how we're always living. We're always on the threshold of something. As one moment ends, another begins and becomes, and it's beautiful. Memory is a funny thing. It is amazing what we remember and what we cannot remember, how memory can be so very selective. Memory also changes over time. My memory, or do I mean my perspective on past events in my life, have changed over time. So much. Remember, remember, remember. Remember literally means to remember, to put back together that which has been torn apart. In some ways, remembering has a similarity to the word religion in its true meaning, its, its real meaning, which means to rebind together, or did. Both are about seeking after a wholeness. And isn't that what we're about most of the time? Aren't we always seeking a wholeness? And we can find a wholeness to the whole of our lives and the whole of our experiences, connecting us to the richness of the history of everything. The idea of the long moment, we don't just live in this narrow, thin moment, but it's a stretching of time that we're part of something far greater than our singular, insular selves. But remember, remember the mystery of memory. For so long, I used to say I could not remember much about my childhood, and the things that I could remember caused me either pain or embarrassment, really. I thank God that's no longer the case, and I do thank God. It would seem that I was always on the run, and you can't live like that. I always had a lot of trouble remembering much of my adult life, too. So much was gone, so much keeps rebinding together. I think fear stopped me remembering. I remembered, it's like amazing what comes back to you. I was frightened of reconnecting with the memories, I think. I was frightened of refeeling these memories, I think. I was ruled by the fear of resentment, of, in the truest sense, of resensing these feelings, good and bad. And there was a thinness to my life as a result. And you have to live a rich life to feel fully alive, to live the whole of your life in this moment we're in right now, to hold infinity in your hand. These days, memory and remembering has become so very important to me. Every year, I gain a perspective on my past, which helps me to live better in the present time and opens up the future in new and fascinating ways too. Memory is a funny thing, it really is. Remember, remember. I was reminded this week of someone else actually who came into my life for just a short period, some 20 years ago. They inspired me though. They lit something in me and changed me forever actually. They helped my life become so much richer. Something I should never forget. Brought to mind some wonderful words of some favourite words by Albert Schweitzer. Words that have been singing in my heart all week as I've been remembering. At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. There are many people who have inspired me, who have lit the flame when all was dark. There are many who have taught me life enhancing, nay, life changing things. Something I thought deeply of at this week's All Souls service. A time to remember those who have touched our hearts but are no longer physically with us. There are so many souls who have inspired me, who continue to inspire me, even though they're long gone. I have to say, actually, this week after the service, I was quite emotional. I was so tired as well. It took so much from my heart. I'd also had the news of the loss of dear Edna, a member of the congregation, just before the service. So after the service, I spent a great deal of time alone. Well, me and Lugs, me and Molly. There was so much grief in my heart, really, I guess, and it runs so deep. So many souls have been lost, so many souls that have lit the flame, so many souls that have inspired me. Inspire is one of those great words, of course, like so many words in common usage, that's been reduced in meaning as time has gone by. We've reduced its power as our lives have become secularized. We've kind of tried to get control of language and words. Inspire originally meant immediate influence of God, especially with reference to the writing of a holy book. Coming from the French inspiration, meaning inhaling, breathing in, inspiration. From the Latin inspirare, meaning to breathe in, to inflame. To inspire means to breathe upon, to blow into, to excite, to inflame, to affect, to arouse, but to do so through spirit or soul. So to inspire is divine activity. Therefore, it seems reasonable to conclude that when we inspire others, we are engaging in divine activity. To inspire others is to engage in one of the highest forms of love. It is divine love in human action through our humble humanity. Everyone we meet and everything that we absorb through our senses can be an inspiration. Those that have inspired us, awakened something within us, helped us to become the people that we are today. They have inspired us. It's divine activity, divine love come to life through our humanity. As we enter this season of remembrance, perhaps we ought to remember all these people and dedicate our lives to create acts of remembrance from the love that they inspired in us. In so doing, we will inspire future generations and those struggling around us to become all that they can be. In so doing, our lives will become worth dying for by the legacies of love that we leave behind. Remember, remember. May our lives become acts of remembrance. Don't remember passively. Bring those memories to life. Inspire through our humanity, through our humble human being. May it be so. Amen. I'm going to end with some final words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more, and we can all bless. We bless when we give ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So these final words of blessing are inspired by words by one of my inspirations who is no longer here, Forest Church. Whatever happens to us after we die, life doesn't end in oblivion. It continues in love, our own love once given, everlasting. After death, our bodies may be resurrected. Our souls may be transmigrated or become part of the heavenly pleroma. We may join our loved ones in heaven, or we may return to the constituent parts of our being, to the earth from which it came, and we may rest in eternal peace. About life after death, no one knows for certain. No one can know for certain. But about love after death, we surely know. The one thing that can never be taken from this world, even by death, is the love we have given away before we die. Love, I swear it, love is immortal. So return to your lives in peace. May you carry that spirit of love. May you inspire through your human being, through your humble humanity. And may we all do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, and in all that we do. Go in love, go in peace. Amen.